I remember going for an interview and the boss actually saying to me when I was in my 20s, are you looking at having children anytime soon? And at that stage it was a no. And I was like, hell no. And I said to him, why did you ask that?
In this episode, we're having a conversation about something that we've become pretty passionate about, and that's the concept of workplaces recognising parenthood as a legitimate work experience. Not only do we want workplaces to value the skills that parenthood brings to a job, but we want parents to fully embrace their time at home with children, knowing that they're building skills that will be recognised and appreciated by their future employees, if and when they're ready to jump back in the job pool. This is a series of 4 episodes where we dive into this topic, so come along with us and consider your own views on whether parenthood should count towards the skills and experiences listed on a resume, and to maybe help you value your own role as a parent just a little bit more than you did yesterday. Hi Sarah, how are you?
Anna, welcome back to another week on Workwives.
Yay! This is going to be a very interesting few episodes that we're going to be recording, because it's a topic that you and I have become very passionate about. We've been really talking about it a lot over the last few weeks, haven't we?
It's something that we have both, unbeknownst to the other, had conversations with our greater circles, and there seems to be a resounding interest in something that you and I are both incredibly passionate about.
Yeah, and that's the it's kind of a big the reason we're going to break it down into
there's a deep dive going on here, because it's like you're a ripple in a big, big, big pool here.
Yeah, so the reason we're going to break it down into a number of episodes is because it is a big topic that kind of needs to be fleshed out and has a lot of different aspects to it.
Yeah.
But generally, how would you describe it?
I think it's basically the confidence of returning to the workplace after being a parent.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. So
what's the problem that we are going to attempt to talk about solving on a grand level with our lovely listener, you listening to us today?
Well, I think you and I are both at different stages of parenthood. I have a teenager now and going through high school. Almost two teenagers. And I'm holding on to my 8-year-old with all I've got, that she's still my little one. But you haven't even hit school yet, but we're both going through it in different stages of friendship cycles. And I guess there is absolutely no shame or no guilt attached, but there is this overwhelming conversation going on in my circles about when you become a mother, everything that you have achieved in the workplace suddenly feels like it's null and void. And for some of my friends, I know for you, your eldest is 4, so you haven't been out of the workplace all that long. You and I have continued working, and that's a choice. But I have friends that did decide to make that decision to take time out to be a bloody excellent mother. And they were bloody excellent in their former lives. And there is this really big shadow of doubt hanging over their heads. Who am I? What am I capable of? Now that I am a mum, am I just a mum?
Yeah.
And I realize that this is something that you and I have been talking about for quite some time, is wanting to flip the mindset in the workplace and also in the individual, that taking time out to be a present mum or to be a mother is actually an incredible thing. It's life altering for your child if you're able to, and it's not for everybody. But it's so good for you to take. I often say this is my so soft quote, is that sometimes it does feel like the nights are long, but the years are so incredibly short. To now have a teenager, I do not regret for one moment the time that I took out from my, big job to spend with my children, because I can see the results now are invaluable and have set them up for being the amazing little humans that they are. And it's not always easy.
I think one of the biggest struggles that I see is kind of a leftover mentality from maybe like the 50s, where life expectancies were a little bit different. Social situations were different. Who you were supposed to be as a wife and a mother was very different. And the concept was that you live your life until you're in your 20s. By the time you hit 30, it's all downhill.
Right.
And
strap on.
Right. You should be married and popping out children by 30. If not, then you're a spinster. And once you do, your career, well, that was a nice bit of fun before you had kids and settled down. And then once you have kids, that's it, right?
Yep. Oh, God, yes.
It's just on the
God
way.
Forbid.
Yeah, on the way to
the grave.
Your husband's retirement and the grave, right?
And there was no Botox probably back then too, so you'd start to look like and feel like shit.
Yeah. Whereas, and even when I was a kid, I remember looking at my mum when she hit 40 and thinking, oh my goodness. And she had the biggest life crisis when she turned 40. It was like, oh God, I'm 40. That's it. Life's over. Like it's all downhill. I'm middle-aged, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I'm 37 now and I think of myself as like a little baby. Like I think 40 is when you start to hit adulthood now. Yeah. So I
think it's a beautiful, beautiful age where I still feel like I'm 23, but I don't have the need to want to please people. I have this inner confidence. I have life experience and I have perspective. I think that's the greatest thing that I have now. I think I always thought I knew it all, but I have this inner calmness now that I didn't have when I was younger.
So I think that the idea of, okay, well, that's it. I'm settling down, having kids now, or everything I've worked for up to this point is all over. Done. Yeah, I feel like I've just done the entree.
Yeah.
And
bring on the main.
So I think you and I have become really invested over the last few weeks in changing the narrative.
I wouldn't say it's going to be our legacy, but if you and I...
It could be.
Oprah had aha moments. You and I have got...
I want, if there's something I can do by the end of this podcast, think big, dream big. I want to change the expectation that you can hand over your resume when you're applying for a job after your kids fly the nest, that you can hand over your resume to whatever job you want to take that you're trained for before you had kids and have a laundry list of assets from your parenthood that are counted towards your work experience.
Let's have this beautiful visualization of just handing over the resume and exhaling with this whole just knowledge that I know shit, I can get shit done. Here I am. I'm like, I was good in my younger years, but I'm coming back 2.0.
And I feel like your hope is that when women, if that becomes the end goal for women, that I feel like you hope that, or at least what you've explained to me is that you hope that when they're in the thick of it, that they've got that in them,
I want to change the mindset that we were just a mum. And have women feel the confidence that, wow, this was all a beautiful journey. I'm raising a great kid, but I'm also just giving myself confidence that if and when I do return, I'm going to do this with an absolute friggin' spring in my step and I've got this. Because I think the renowned issue is that returning to the workforce after children is so much self-doubt, so much questioning, such a lack of confidence. And I think the greatest thing I realized when I was trying to have a baby in my 20s, we had a baby, when I was in my 20s, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine who wasn't quite at that stage of her life and saying to her, why don't people talk about the fact that you're going to take time out for a kid and it's going to be beautiful? Because I remember saying to her, it's so strange. My whole life I've had people say, and what are you going to do? Are you going to go to uni? What's your job going to be? Working your butt off, getting there, and then suddenly no one ever said, take time out to have kids. I remember a good friend of mine is a detective and we had children at the same time. And she had 4 years maternity leave. Her husband got paternity leave for 3 months. And then the police department rang her and said, do you want to come back and just, ease on in? They gave her a day and then 2 days. And then, I remember thinking, holy crap, I should have actually considered my position, because in media at that time, particularly before COVID, there was absolutely no way you could work at home. And there was absolutely no flexibility. And I remember being in my 20s going, holy shit, I've had a great career. I've managed Sydney radio stations with some of the biggest talent in the country. I was given a car at 21. I could rack off all these amazing things that I had done. And then suddenly I was looking around at my friends or people that I knew having babies and looking at the options that they had, and I had zero. It was either take maternity leave with no money, and come back on their terms, you might lose your job, or come back as soon as you can so that you can keep your job. But there was absolutely no easing in. And I remember that was the first time it had hit me that after all the education that we have about getting great careers and, going into, I remember the universities used to come to school.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably very scary to sit a 17-year-old down and talk about, your maternity leave options. But it was like running into a brick wall. Why hadn't I ever thought about that? Why hadn't I considered that? And not begrudging my girlfriends that were in industries like police force or probably you as a nurse, there was more options. For me, there was none. And it wasn't something I had ever considered. So that was the first kind of like, oh my God moment that I had. And now having children and realizing people, taking some time out with their kids, there is that kind of tuss of, oh, you're just a mum. As opposed to going, good for you, you've raised a friggin' human. You can multitask like no one's business. I bet you can negotiate some greens into dinner. We could sit here and rattle off all the skills. And not just that, it's perspective. And the other thing I think about having a child, the different 2.0 version of me before I had a child and after, is a complete lack of selfishness that I had afterwards, which I think is an incredible skill upon itself. Because when you become a parent, it's not about you anymore. And I think going into the workplace, that's an incredible skill.
Yeah, you were able to be selfless. I think there are still a lot of parents who maybe haven't nailed that one.
I think we're very, very passionate about that. I'm about empowering the person to feel that you're not just a mum, to bloody give yourself a pat on the back, realize your accolades, and to, when you're in the moment of being a parent, if you are being present, that's not a bad thing. That when you are raising a child, that you're not sitting there thinking, oh my God, enjoy it. It is, as I said earlier, it is short, those moments with your children. So I think that, sitting under a tree and able to tune out and be present with your child is the best skill in the world that you can give them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've both had some conversations in the last couple of weeks with people in our lives who have resonated that message with us. And I think we're going to dive into that in the next few episodes, along with a quote that I love. We'll do a self quote. And I think we're going to maybe have a look at what a resume might look like if you could put parenting on it as a job.
Oh, that's a bit of fun.
I think it's going to be super fun. So, anyone who I know the people that I know who listen to this can resonate in many different ways with what we're going to talk about. But yeah, it's something that you and I are very passionate about. And I think we just want to flesh out in the next few
And
chats.
It's something someone said to me recently, that in order to be the top of your field in any organization, as a woman, you should be childless.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, think about some successful women like Oprah, Ellen, that you are just so, you can be caught up in yourself. That's another tangent, but I thought that was an interesting thing, because I would love to, again, flip the mindset that having kids can bring a lot of extra to you.
Yeah, but also, yeah. And maybe we're just not focusing on the right leaders. I mean, let's look at old mate, Prime Minister of New Zealand, or I guess the only other person.
Jacinta Ardern, yeah.
Yeah, my brains. Yeah. Why did I think Sarah Palin was a good...
I really don't know.
Anyway, it's worth a chat anyway. So let's dive into it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I know that we haven't discussed with each other exactly what we've had conversations with our friends. So I'm looking forward to hearing your friends' perspectives at a different stage of where my friends are. And and hearing that, and hopefully changing the mindset in the workplace as well as in the individual.
Absolutely.
That I remember going for an interview and the boss actually saying to me when I was in my 20s, are you looking at having children anytime soon? And at that stage it was a no. And I was like, hell no. And I said to him, why did you ask that? Obviously knowing that he didn't want to invest in somebody that was going to be up the duff. And I can see his perspective, but what a horrible place for our young women to be out there and putting off family because it inconveniences
what they're working for right now in their life.
All right, to be continued. I'm excited.
Yay! All right, let's hook in.